say, what's that? It's Pat.
Okay, hi everybody. This is Patrick Argiro, aka Cousin Pat, and I am here with MMA fighter Leah Letson. Hi Leah, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. This is exciting for me because we um, we this is like our fourth attempt to get together, so it's good stuff. Do you before we get started, so Leah was on The Ultimate Fighter, and are you currently on the roster of the UFC?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, awesome. That's awesome. So, um, first of all, I was in the Air Force as well, but before we get asking into these questions, I want you to know what I did yesterday because I thought it was so funny. I did a non-interview with you yesterday and recorded it. So, so what I did was I said, "Hey guys, how you doing?" I said, "This is because I said, listen, I was supposed to interview Leah Letson. It wasn't rude at all. It was actually kind of funny." And then I said, "Well, these are the questions I'm going to ask Leah Letson." And then I said, "Oh, so you were in the Air Force?" And then I pretended to be you, and
Yeah.
I answered as you. And then, "Oh, so what was it like to fight? What was it like to fight Mike Macy Chiason?" And then you said, "Oh yeah, well." So it was amusing, but I enjoyed myself. So let's get into it real quick. So you are an Air Force vet. Are you currently still in, or?
Yeah. I'm still in the Wisconsin Air National Guard, and I've been in for about 9 years now, a little over 9 years.
Well,
So
thank you for your service.
thank you for
Um,
yours.
Thank you. I really didn't see much. I was in the reserves and I didn't really
Okay.
get into. So were you based out of Lackland?
Well, that's where I went to basic training, and then
Yeah.
tech school was in Biloxi, Mississippi, and then also at Luke Air Force Base out in Arizona, and then back to Wisconsin. And I was up at the 128th Air Control Squadron up in Volkfield up until a few months ago. I just transferred down to the Air Refueling Wing in Milwaukee. So now I'm in Milwaukee.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 So now you live in Milwaukee?
I've lived in Milwaukee the whole time. I was just, um, so I had my basic training tech school and then the follow-on school after tech school. And then I used to drive 2.5 hours to my base once a month and then 2 weeks a year. So thankfully I don't have to make that big drive again. So I'm just 15 minutes away from my base now.
Well, that's awesome. When did you join the Air Force?
I was 19, so my sophomore year of college is when I enlisted.
And what was the because I could tell you my reasoning, but what was your reasoning for doing that?
Um, there's a bunch of different reasons. One of them, I always kind of felt like I had this duty to serve my country. Like I wanted to serve my country, but I also wanted to go to college. So the Air National Guard was kind of like the perfect mix because I could serve and then also have a civilian career and go to college and all that at the same time. So, and also my grandpa was in all three branches except the Air Force. So kind of just completed that circle. And then I also wanted to be a police officer originally when I was going to school. So I wanted anything that would help me get the preference points for becoming a police officer and then eventually federal law enforcement. It was what my original goal was until I discovered MMA.
So what is your current rank right now? You a master sergeant? What's your
I'm
E5?
a I'm an E6 technical sergeant.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. And again, I didn't really do much with it. I was out of um MacDill Air Force Base, which I'm about an hour from because I'm in Polk County, Florida.
Okay.
And so MacDill is in Tampa. Then, of course, Lackland, I did my BMT. Then I went to Wichita Falls or Shepherd
Okay.
Air Force Base, which is like, I think I'm in the country now. that was like the only thing that supports that place really is the Air Force and a mall, like a
Okay.
shopping center. It's so small. Then I came back, did a couple weekends, and I was in the reserves, and I got a job in New York, and there was no base within 60 miles. And so they put me on inactive, and I didn't even know. I was like, there's no base. I was like, okay. And
Yeah.
then so, but it was good for like my story is I became homeless at one point, and one of the homeless shelters I stayed at, I'm not homeless now. See, I got a wall and everything. So, but one of the things was I stayed at a homeless shelter called HEP, and it was
Okay.
Homeless Emergency Project for Veterans. So because of that, because of my service in the Air Force, I was able to do that. And then also I got money for college as well. So that it was really great. And
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, it really helped me get back on my feet. So where are you originally from?
Originally, I'm from Janesville, Wisconsin, so about an hour and 15 minutes away from where I live right now.
Okay. Okay. Now I noticed that you had, I'm a big, I used to be a real big MMA fan. Now I'm like, I think a little bit more than casual, but not quite crazy. And this isn't supposed to be an MMA show, but honestly, you, I say you MMA people, it sounds so bad, but you MMA people are really cool. Like you guys, I've talked about 15, maybe 20 between UFC and Bellator, and you guys are just really cool. I talked to one non-MMA person, and she was a little snippy with me. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just stick with the MMA people. Plus, you guys scare the shit out of me. So it's like I'm respectful because even though we're in a camera,
Yeah.
uh, let me ask you a question. Do you think it's weird that I brush my teeth before a Zoom call?
No,
No, you don't think so?
probably pretty normal.
Yeah, because it's not like you could smell it. I mean,
But it's just nice to have clean teeth.
yeah, okay. I thought I wanted to ask you that. Also, a former stand-up, not very good, obviously, but so you had a couple canceled bouts in 2019. So what happened there?
So I've been suffering with severe health issues.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Uh, I was diagnosed with hypothyroid disorder, and then I've been working with a functional medicine doctor actually for the last 2.5 years, but my whole body basically almost shut down from overtraining and undereating for so long with severe weight cuts for fighting. Um, it's really, really bad for you to do what I was doing. I was training like 6 times a day and eating less than 1,000 calories a day for an extended period of time. And um, that's really bad for everybody, but especially for females. So my body just kind of shut down. I was really close to like hospitalizing myself. That's how bad my health was. And I didn't even know it until I started working with this doctor, and he ran a bunch of tests on me. So my thyroid was messed up, my hormones were all messed up, even my mitochondria down to like the cellular level was all messed up. So I've basically had to rebuild everything from the ground up for my health in the last 2.5 years. And I'm finally getting to the point where I could potentially fight again, and I'm hoping to fight again this fall sometime.
Well, I look forward to that. And that's an interesting lesson because I watched you on The Ultimate Fighter, and then I saw you on Tough Talk with Michael Bisping.
Yeah.
And is it? I always screw up her name. Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was on your side. Like I was like, well, I see her point. Like she wants to train hard. She wants to
Yeah.
she wants to train hard because they're just doing soft stuff, and maybe her it's going to be not as sharp.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. But then when Michael asked you and you said 5 times a day, I think everyone was like, wow, that's a lot. So maybe, maybe you're like,
Well,
for you, light training could be 3 times a day, you know?
well, for back then, yes. what I was mostly talking about when I was on Tough Talk was like the fact that when we were on the Ultimate Fighter, our training, not just for me, but everyone on my team felt the same way. They weren't as vocal about it. And the way that they edited the show, they definitely made it sound like it was just me that was unhappy, but that's not really the case. We were just, for striking, we weren't really doing any sort of live drilling or any sparring or any like really bag work or anything. We were literally just shadow boxing for the majority of our kickboxing practices. And I'm sorry, but like you can only shadow box so much before it starts to not provide you any benefit. You know what I mean? Like you gotta actually do drills and eventually go live and hit the bag and hit pads and stuff. You gotta do more than just shadow box.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't train, so I don't know, but I've talked to a bunch and of fighters, that is, and I could see your point. And you know what was great about what you did is what you did, to me, as someone looking in, when I watch these shows, and I heard Dana doesn't like any scripted stuff. Like I talked to Vince Pichel, and he said that they did something, and then the producer told him to redo that. They told him to redo it, and Dana was there and was like, no, listen, we don't do that shit here. You don't, we're not scripted in that way. So that's good. But what you did was you got noticed on that show without making a complete ass out of yourself. Because no, for real, because you pointed some stuff out. You weren't happy. You said you wanted to switch teams, and that's all good. It was just, but it was none of that like, let's bang and punching yourself in the head and like what some of the, and if I ever ran into that guy, I would pretend when he says, "Are you that guy?" I don't know, no, because he just actually fought in bare knuckle.
Yeah.
And so, but you got noticed, but you did it in a way where it wasn't like you look like a jackass. So
Yeah.
I think that's good, because sometimes I watch this and I'm like, I watch that show, I'm like, my God, is this how they are? Like, it's like some of them just, some of them are a little, you know,
I mean, that's how some people are. That's just not how I am. What you saw on the show was me. Like I'm me all the time. I don't need to try to be anybody else. I don't need to be obnoxious to try to make a name for myself. In fact, I didn't want that. Like for me, it's all about being a positive role model. So I'm trying to do my best to uh, basically be a good role model for kids and for women. And I knew that everyone was going to be watching that show, and I wouldn't want children to see me acting like a fool, because that's not the kind of person I am, and I want to be a good role model. And especially as an athlete, I feel like I almost have an obligation or a duty to not only give back but be a good role model, you know?
So let me ask you this, and I'm sorry I'm moving around so much here, but let me ask you this: Have you talked to Robert Whitaker since the show?
No.
I thought you were going to say that. I thought maybe, maybe I was thinking maybe, but it's never come up, right? Well, you've never had the opportunity, or it's just like, it is what it is, right?
I mean, I've never had the opportunity. If I did see him, I would say hi to him, obviously. But it's not like, I don't know, we're not like best buddies or anything. We really haven't had the opportunity to see each other or talk ever since the show anyway. So
As you can see, my professional setup here. So give me one second. I'm sorry. I've had interviews. I interviewed Eric Andrews, and it was so funny. He was getting on an airplane. I feel like one day I'm going to interview someone like using the restroom. It was really funny. I talked to a legend today. What was this gentleman's name? He was back in the day. What was his name? Moiti Horenstein. He fought in UFC 10 and 14. He fought Mark Coleman, and he didn't have a good ground game, but he was talking to me in his car. So I'll take whatever. But you were my first planned interview. So you're on page one of my notes. So well, I hope I'm glad you're starting to feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
And on October 3rd, you defeated 2018, I should say, you defeated B. Malecki. Did I say her name right?
Bea.
And she was also, it says here she was a former Air National Guard. Is that correct?
That is not correct. She's from Sweden.
Wikipedia, man. Well, that's what it said. Because it did say she was a Swedish champion, but then it said a former Air National Guard. So you can't rely on Wikipedia.
Yeah, they must have
but
gotten us mixed up because
I
she's from.
think I think they
Mhm.
did. I think they did. So, well, that's great. And how was it? And has your life? Did your life change since being on that show?
Um, a little bit. It did at first. Like I definitely got recognized a lot more. And that was cool. I always like to be recognized by fans and stuff when I'm out and about. But for the most part, not really. My life hasn't really changed that much. I still just train most of the time, and I'm still in the military. I'm still living in the Milwaukee area. Not much has really changed.
I like that. I like when I hear stuff like that, like where, like, take Stipe, for example. You know, was champion and
Yeah,
fireman in Ohio,
yeah,
and he'll probably live the rest of his life in Ohio. And I hope if you become champion one day, and I wish that for you, I hope you stay in Milwaukee. I really do. Like New York, LA, all those places, like, you know, people, it's too saturated. I think I like when I hear, like, you guys are, just living your life, regular places. And
yeah,
for the most part, I've found that you guys are uh, very normal people who just can beat the shit out of other people. You're not dicks. You're not you don't think too highly. You have a lot of respect normally. I mean, there's outliers, right? There's people that are dicks, but that's in any industry. 20% of the workforce are douchebags. So that's really, I'm a therapist, right? But that's how I talk. Um, so so you don't know, so you, like, I think you said your next fight you're planning, hopefully in the fall.
yeah.
Okay. All right. And what is your prediction, if you have one, on the Connor Poirier trilogy?
Um, I think that Poirier is gonna win. I
Every,
think Connor hasn't been the same since he has lost. I think his confidence is way down, and I also think that if he can't finish you with his cross in the first round, I don't think he has the gas tank, and I don't think he has the grappling to last all 3 rounds. I don't see him winning.
you know, I this was a guy who was, they made it seem like he was super broke, but his dad was a plumber, middle class guy, could have been a plumber too. I think he was briefly, but at one point was on food stamps over in Ireland. And this is a guy who, when Khabib smacked his friend Artem,
Mhm.
flies down, or flies up, or flies across, or the pond, or whatever it's called, and throws a dolly at a bus. And now this is a guy that when Jake Paul calls his wife a four, or his girlfriend a four, he goes, fair play. Fair play. They want to, because he's got so many issues that he has to control himself.
Yeah,
So it's a different person. And now this is a guy who's worth a half a bill. And so I think maybe His heart might not be into it as much, but he's still a badass, obviously. But um, I
Yeah, I
just
think you hit it right when you said his heart's not in it anymore, because you don't have, I feel like if he has so much other things going on, right, that's distracting you from training and actually focusing on the fight, that when you get to the fight, you have so much other things on your mind, you're not even paying attention to what the task at hand, which is to fight somebody. And fighting is a lot of a mental game. So if your head isn't in it and your heart's not in it, you're probably not going to win that fight.
yeah, because like I was talking to a fighter yesterday, Mike Davis, the Beast Boy. And now here's
Mhm.
a guy who's so hungry. He was telling me he's so hungry. He said it on camera, so I'm not saying anything. He lives with another UFC, another MMA fighter, right?
Mhm.
And he's dying to get to that next level. He's dying to get to that next level. And then you have a guy like Connor who's at the ultimate level. And so, his desire, it's got to be a different feeling. Like, he doesn't have to do anything for the rest of his life ever.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
great grandchildren, honestly, unless they're big spenders, really don't have to do anything. And, he took an opportunity, and I think it's great. And more than asking you about you, I like having MMA people on because I like getting some inside information, or as far as just like how you guys think and things like that. And I think there's lessons to be learned. But you were just talking about your health. So you can't, do you train even a little, or not? Like, you haven't done anything because it could I understand it sounds very serious what you had, but I mean, it's really, you haven't done anything.
No, I've been training. I had to take a few months off, or a little bit of time off of training completely until my body could get somewhat healed. And then I had to start out at 20 minutes a day and then slowly increase from there based on how my body was handling the training. And it's been a very long, difficult road, both mentally and physically. But I'm back up to training 2 to 3 times a day, and that's where I'm going to stay. I'm never going to do what I used to do ever again. Like, um, there's
That's
no need to.
Yeah, that, I mean, even 2 or 3 times, isn't but is that normal, 2 to 3 times for most fighters, or?
Well, 2 to 3 times a day for 5 days a week. So I mean, I take the weekends off still, and that's pretty normal, I think, for full-time fighters. Yeah.
And how much time per session are we looking at? I'm sure you do different things, cardio
Yeah.
and then jujitsu and all this stuff, but how often when you say 2, 3 times?
I'd say an hour each.
Okay, well, that's not terrible.
No.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's still, I just think you're, and I say this with all the respect in the world, I just think you're a beast of a person. So like, you're like, yeah, I'm taking it easy. I'm working out 3 hours a week. They got programs they put out so people could work like 15 minutes a day, because they
Yeah.
claim they don't have time. When they do, they just have to make the time. Um, so let me ask your opinion on this, because um, I love combat sports. And what are your thoughts on Francis Ngannou? Because I have a thought, and I wanted to share it with you. I shared it with another MMA fighter, and he thought it was a great idea. But what are your thoughts on him? Is he just the most terrifying, or do you think that
He is
somebody can beat him?
absolutely no. He's terrifying, and I don't think he's gonna get beat by anybody anytime soon. I would
Really?
I would not fight him. That would be terrifying. Thankfully, I don't have to, but I would not want to be in his weight class. Let me just say that.
I I asked Mike Davis. I'm so like, when I meet guys or girls with just this utter confidence in themselves, it's like, I have confidence in myself because I've been through some stuff and I know I could come out the other side. But there's certain things that you have to know your limitations. Like,
Mhm.
if I go into a bar and I run into Joe Schilling, I'm gonna just say, hey man, no problem. because you know that story, right, with Joe Schilling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk with him, but you know, I said, so is Francis? Have you met Francis Nagano? And he said, yeah. I said, is he? He must be so intimidating. He's like, no, he's not that intimidating. He's a bigger guy, but and I believed him. I don't think he was full of shit. Like Dominic Cruz once told Michael Bisping, you must have heard this story, that he told Michael Bisping, if you try to fight me, like I'll kick your ass. And Bisping actually thought about it for a second. I was like, well, maybe he could. Have you ever heard that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, no, it's on YouTube, so it's not like I'm friends with Dominic Cruz, but like these guys, you guys have no fear. Has there ever been a situation where maybe, I don't know if guys are doing this too much once in a while, but have you ever had a situation where you had to put somebody, a regular folk, take care of a regular folk, average Joe, if you will?
No, I mean, the closest thing, I was a bouncer in Milwaukee for a year, and
Wow.
I mean, I would throw guys out of the bar, but I never fought them. We weren't allowed to hit them, and so we would just have to basically grapple them or hold them and then take them out of the bar. But that, I've never ever been in a street fight in my whole life.
What
I've never felt the need to.
Yeah, I guess you never needed to, and so you were able to control these guys. Like you actually, you didn't have any issues. I mean, I know what you are. I mean, you're a killer. So, but you were able to. You were a bouncer.
Yes.
That's amazing, because you're my first female bouncer I've ever met.
Yeah, there's not a lot of us.
Yeah, that's it's unusual, right?
Yeah, I didn't have any problems controlling them, especially because most of them were too intoxicated to really do much back anyway. But even still, a trained person versus an untrained person, it's usually pretty easy to control somebody.
Yeah. Okay. You know, that makes sense. And even if it's a larger man, not a problem.
Not a problem. It's actually really funny to carry them out of the bar and watch their friends make fun of them.
I think that would be a funny thing to watch. I watch, you know, like a lot of videos on this stuff. And then I have another question for you, because you know, but I watch a lot of these videos about, like, if you type in like UFC fighter versus average Joe or whatever, there's a bunch out there. Like Jason Knight just beat the shit out of two guys in a bathroom stall. Um,
I think I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now he tells the story. He was completely wrong, but the way he tells the story. He's like, all I did was say, you know, his wife, and it wasn't a big deal. And that's my Jason Knight impression. And then he beat the hell out of two guys in a stall, like while he was pinned in the bathroom. You basically see the two guys drop. So
Yeah.
it was very interesting. Let me ask you this, because I asked Vince and I asked Mike and I've asked a few fighters. Are you getting antsy? Meaning, like, these guys told me that they don't throw punches, but they're always in the mood. Like, for example, Vince is like, I always like to fight and I still like to fight. I just control my temper now. And clearly you can see, like with the Joe Schilling thing, like some of these guys are just ready to go at the drop of a dime. Like, do you have that urge in you, or are you pretty chill? Like, do you sometimes wish, like, man, I wish I could just, like, do you ever, like, I wish I could just grapple that guy to the ground? You know, like,
I mean, I'm usually pretty chill. I mean, sometimes probably I've said that jokingly, but never like, I've never actually thought that or been super close to fighting anyone in regular life.
well, I guess as men, you know, we have more. We have more testosterone. We have testosterone, and so that seems to be flowing. And some guys are like, these guys are telling me they're ready to go, like all the time. Some of them are just ready to go. They're just
Yeah, I'm more of a chill person, and as far as street fights go, like I feel like I grew up in traditional martial arts where like you never ever started a fight. Like it was all about respect, and you only use martial arts to defend yourself if it was the absolute last resort. And I kind of have always believed in that philosophy. And I also feel like I don't need to prove anything to anyone. So a lot of these people, I'm not saying MMA fighters necessarily, but a lot of guys in general, like especially non-fighters, have this like ego, or like they feel like they need to be macho and they feel like they need to prove something to somebody, and like that's why they get into fights. But if you're a really good fighter, a true fighter, like I don't feel like you need to fight anyone on the street because you have nothing to prove. You already know that you're a badass. Like there's nothing like fighting someone on the street doesn't prove anything to anybody because you already know.
right. I could see that. I could see that. Like, and you have nothing to gain and everything to lose, really.
Yeah.
You have everything to lose. So I need your help with this next one. Okay, so your season was called the Heavy Hitters, right? And so on November 30th, 2018, for the finale, you beat Yulia
Yulia.
How do you say it?
Yulia.
All right, Yulia
Yes.
Stolarenko.
Stolyarenko.
You must get so good at this, right? Because like now the UFC, it's such an international thing that some of the names of the fighters are so crazy. Not crazy, just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we lived with each other for the whole time we were filming for like 6 weeks, so you get to know each other's names and how to pronounce it.
Yeah, yeah. Who is your and that was a great fight, by the way.
Thank you.
Who is your dream fight if you had one?
Obviously Amanda Nunes, because that means I'd be fighting for the belt.
Right. So you don't think, I know it sounds like a dumb question, but sometimes people, they, like Pat Barry once made a comment that he had his dream fight was somebody, he wanted to fight this legend. So I just wanted to ask the question, but yes, obviously Amanda Nunes would mean you're fighting for the belt.
Yeah. Well, and she's become a legend now, so known as the best female fighter ever. So obviously, I need to fight her so that I can be the best female fighter ever.
I
So that's
don't,
my dream fight.
that makes sense. I don't see anybody, and this is no knock on you, and until you get healthy and get in there again, right? But I don't see anyone currently fighting. I think that was a nice way to put it. I don't see anyone currently fighting who can beat her.
Yeah.
Do you? Well, you're not currently fighting, so I'm not including you. So you can't get mad.
I mean, no. There's as of right now, I don't know if anyone is ready to fight her yet. I'll say that. Not yet.
Yeah, maybe with a few more years of age, and then somebody comes along a little hungry. I know Cyborg. I think if I have this dream fight, which is never going to happen. I'm a huge. Well, let me finish my thought because I'm all over the place. But I think that if Cyborg really thought she could beat her, she would have asked for a rematch. Like Connor, you got to give him credit. He got beat. He did this with Nate Diaz too. He gets beat. He wants to get back in there. Some people say that's a sign of weakness, which I don't understand what that means. It's a sign of weakness to me. That shows like it's a sign of like I don't know what it'd be a sign of. It you need to prove something to yourself. But she was like, I'm good, Cyborg, and she's no longer with the UFC, I believe. So
Right.
so that only person who really I could have seen maybe with adding to her training could have taken her. But my dream fight. Now I'm a huge Gina Carano fan. because now I know you're laughing. Now Gina Carano's 5'8". She's completely out of it now in the sense of training and a little bit older, but she fought a enhanced cyborg. Okay, enhanced. You know what I mean by
Right.
enhanced, right?
Right.
Enhanced. And she did okay. She lost, but she did okay. And I don't think she gets enough credit as a lot of credit goes to Ronda Rousey, but I think that Gina Carano really brought a lot of attention to women's MMA. She
Well,
just
I
didn't get
definitely agree with that.
yeah,
And I feel like she doesn't get enough credit for what she did for the sport as well,
exactly.
which isn't fair to her. But
No,
at least she's got a good acting career now, and she's doing well for herself. But
well, no,
I definitely think that she deserves more credit than what she gets.
well, we agree on that. And well, I will say about the acting career, did you hear what happened? She got removed from the Mandalorian. She was on a Star Wars show.
Uh,
She
I don't watch
tweeted,
Star Wars shows. I don't really know anything about.
well, it was a big deal. She lost her job because she tweeted something. And that's a big thing in Hollywood where you have to, my political views are mine and they're private. And they kind of swing both ways. And you would not, I wish I'd be at Joe Rogan's level, but the way Joe Rogan handles politics, he's obviously a Democrat, but he says, but when he sees craziness, he calls it. Like these
Yeah.
leftist people, he's like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
And so people from the right think he's a Republican. He's not. But at the same time, like you have to have an opinion of, you cannot say anything to go against the grain. And if you do, you will lose your job. So she lost her job for essentially a tweet. I forget what it was about. It was nothing big. And so she lost her job, and then they tried to vilify her. Luckily,
That's unfortunate. I don't know much. I don't know anything
yeah,
about this. So
well, luckily she's got a big following. If you get a big following on Twitter or Instagram, you kind of set anyway, because then you could just kind of turn into like a mall. You could like
yeah.
sell products, like so she'll be fine. She'll be fine. But I agree with you. I don't think she gets enough credit. Not even not at all, really. And I don't get it. And she's a little bit too old now, I would think, but she has time on her hands. But I would love to see a Gina Carano fight versus
Amanda.
Amanda Nunes. And I know that Amanda would kill her. I mean, I know this, but
I mean, it's MMA. Anything can happen, right? And then, I don't know how much training she's been doing, so
I would,
probably not a lot. But if she would have been training consistently, then that would be a good matchup. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
yeah, no, yeah, she brought a lot of eyes to the sport. And so did Rhonda, but I'm a real big Gina Carano fan. She used to do a lot of sports interviews, and she was on New York sports stations a lot. And just seemed like a real down to earth, nice person like yourself. Just not a dick.
Yeah.
Like Rhonda seems, maybe it's an act. Seems a little bit, she has a big husband.
She always had that, like that was her claim to fame, I think, really was that personality of being kind of I don't know. I don't want to say like a bad word, but she
I don't
she was
either. I'm
kind
trying
of-
not to say the bad word either. Maybe not the nicest person.
she had that bad girl reputation. I'll say that.
Yeah, and on
She,
her
she liked it.
yeah, and on her season with Misha, she was getting in the face of these guys, and who could clearly just like, I know at the time she was the baddest woman on the planet. Nobody knew that they could beat her, but she was getting in the face of these guys, like in their face. And I was like, that guy could, like, he just destroy your chin. He would just crack your jaw in 3 places. These were trained MMA fighters. So I think the fame maybe went to her head. But hey, she made a career. She made a good career for herself, and she seems to have a happy life. And this isn't an MMA show, but I think I'm going to turn it into one because all I talk to now is MMA people. But it's really about motivation and the journey, and it was very interesting to hear about the fact that you weren't feeling well, and even with Rhonda, like after her loss, to feel suicidal because of a loss, it's just like to have one thing define you so deeply. How do you feel about it? Like you obviously do you feel defined as only a UFC fighter, or do you have, if anything, if I were you, I would be more, I'd feel prouder about the fact that you fought for our country, that you're in the Air Force, but how do you look at it?
I have struggled extremely bad with depression, especially with all the health issues, because not only does your hormones and your thyroid affect your mental health as well, but also not being able to fight. And like, I do define myself as a fighter. Obviously, I've worked through it, and now I see myself as more than just one thing. But when you're a fighter and you can't do the one thing that you love and you feel like you're meant to do, right? That is soul crushing, and it's very frustrating, especially when your body is failing you and you have this like desire to do something, but you're not physically capable of doing it. It's very frustrating and very disheartening. And I was struggling for several reasons for the past couple years with depression, and I'm finally doing way better now. My health is way better, my mental health is way better. But I definitely can understand why she felt suicidal after her loss, because she was built up as this person that was undefeatable, right? And like that's how you start to think of yourself. And then when you get defeated, you just feel like your whole sense of purpose is just in question, and that's very hard to deal with.
So
Losing a fight is hard enough, but then like to be someone like her where she's famous and well known, and then I'm sure people on social media are extremely cruel. So I hope she didn't read anything online. I've learned to never ever read comments or anything online, because people online are the most brutal, cruel people. Like they would never say that to someone in real life, right? So I don't read that stuff, but if she was reading that stuff, I can totally understand where she was coming from.
yeah, and after she lost like that, it was reported, because she was like the darling, right? She was getting movies, and she still does movies, but now you'll see her in a lesser role. But she lost out on movie roles and things like that, because they were like, oh well, the mystique is gone. But I have a question for you, and I hope it's not too personal, but since you said you understand it now, I also went through depression, and I can state that at one point in my life that I did in fact feel suicidal, but I would never act on it, because I hate to say that people who commit suicide are selfish, because they're not, they're hurting, but it's selfish in the sense of that you leave behind all this pain for other people. And so I would never have done that to my mother. But have you ever felt suicidal?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
First, when I got back from deployment for the first couple months, it was really rough on me, just because I felt like nobody back here could understand me anymore. And there were certain people that were close to me at the time that were not supportive when I got back, and they basically told me that what I did wasn't a big deal and that it didn't matter, and that I needed to just get over it and suck it up. And
What do you
I felt
What do you mean it wasn't a big deal? Going overseas wasn't a big deal?
no, that I mean that's what somebody had said to me. And at this point, I used to look up to that person, but and I'm not gonna mention who it was. If they listen to this, they'll know. Um, but yeah, that was really hard to hear. And then also, I felt this extreme sense of loneliness, right? Because you're spending so much time all day, every day with the same group of people, right? So they become like your family. And then when you get home, especially in the guard, these people are not like, it's not like active duty where you go back and you work with the same people again. Like you go back home and these people are now scattered all over the world. And so you're not going to see them like you used to see them. And so like, there's just the sense of like grief and sadness because it feels like everyone who you just spent all this time with, like they became like family. You don't get to see them anymore or talk to them the same way that you used to. And nobody else around you can possibly understand what you just went through.
Right.
And so there's just this sense of like loneliness because even when I was in a room full of people, I still felt alone.
Which is a normal feeling for people, especially veterans who feel suicidal. What you said, 1,000 other veterans have said that. So I want to, and so it's common, but it's also, it does feel terrible.
There
And
was a second time that I felt that suicidal as well. And that was in the last 2 years with my health issues.
yeah,
Because I had certain people around me also saying like, oh, well, you just need to eat less and work harder and then you'll be okay. You're just not trying hard enough. You're not trying hard enough to lose weight, or you're not trying hard enough to get back into fighting. And it made me believe that I was just this lazy, terrible person, right? But when in reality, when I would talk to my doctor, he's like, no, this is exactly why you're feeling this way. You can't eat less and work harder. That's going to actually make things worse. And when you have people I used to have people that were constantly like negative and degrading and stuff around me. And then when you're dealing with health issues on top of that, it's awful. But thankfully I have like the world's best boyfriend, and he was like my #1 supporter through all of that. So he's the one who got me through all of that rough stuff with my health.
how's he feeling, by the way? Because I know you said he had surgery, last minute surgery.
Uh, it was a procedure and he's doing okay now. It was
Okay.
for his esophagus.
Okay. Okay. Do you remember yeah, because you were supposed to, we were supposed to talk, and then
Yeah,
something happened. So, well, getting back to what you said earlier. So the situation, because I went through something similar where you said that people, and you're not going to mention who it is. And I know that always sucks when you have someone you really respect or care about or love, and they hurt you with words, and they don't mean to, but maybe, well, maybe they do. It just depends. But so tell me if this was the situation. You came back, you were sad, and because you felt like something, and they were basically, and correct me, they were like, what's the big deal? Like, why are you upset? You went overseas, like, get over it, like, get over it. And there was something, they have a lot of different names for it back in the 40s and 50s when veterans would go through this. And so you came back and you were depressed, and essentially somebody close to you said, get over it. Is that about right?
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. That's that could hurt. No, that could very much hurt. And but you somehow, did you ever seek any therapy?
I did. Didn't really seem to help too much, at least the therapist that I was being sent to. So I just kind of figured it out on my own. So
Sometimes that's the best thing. I was in therapy for years and years and years. And then I went through some stuff where, and because it sounds like, and tell me if I'm wrong, because this is what people want to hear, and this is what people need to hear. Like a badass like yourself had issues, because that's what I want the podcast to be about, right? So were you ever in, because it sounds like you were trying, it almost sounded like, were you ever involved in a narcissistic relationship? Because I was.
yeah.
Yeah, because that's what it sounded. Hey, we could recognize, like I could recognize when you were talking,
Yeah.
because narcissists get off on, when you're down, they love to keep you there.
Yep.
And so it sounds
And
like you had a narcissistic type relationship. If I'm wrong,
it wasn't like a romantic relationship. It was just like a friendship type relationship. So yes.
yeah, no, but yeah, I sensed, I got that, because then you said your boyfriend was very supportive. So the way you worded it,
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't romantic, but I could tell that it was a narcissistic type thing, because that's what people do. And I've run into, for me, I've run into a lot of what I call fake people, where I've been gaslighted a lot.
Mhm.
And I was in I was with one of the worst narcissists I've ever met. And to this day, if somebody were to ask me about this person, I would just use one word. I would say she's a creep. I wouldn't call her a bad person. I wouldn't say, but she was a creep. But she had issues, right? Of course, to be like that, you have to have issues. And so I was going through some problems, and I was feeling just down. And so I'm a Christian, and I do Christian counseling as well as regular, but I'm not one of those like Christians where it's you've heard me cursing, right?
Yeah.
I'm a regular guy, but I think if people have that belief, that's great. But I've met a Christian who told me she was suicidal, and then when I was feeling suicidal, this individual told me that I was just seeking attention, which is one of the worst things you could tell to somebody who's suicidal. Actually, anybody will tell you, you don't tell someone who's suicidal, you are just trying to get attention. Because a lot of people be like, you're just trying to get attention. Like, dude. And I was like, wow, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see you later.
Yeah.
I'll see you later, because I don't need that. And I stopped talking to this particular person. And well, it sounds like that and you know what you were saying about you figure it out on your own. Sometimes that's what you got to do. Because I've been in therapy, or I was in therapy, and it didn't, none of that stuff worked, or the way they talked to me nothing happened. And then when I started studying it, I was like, I got it deeper. And then also I was like, well, none of my therapists did this shit. None of my therapists did these techniques on me or tried this or that. They just sort of were like, oh, okay. They just sat there, collected their money, and moved on. And
Yeah. I will
but
say the one thing that has really been a game changer for me is sports psychologists. So not necessarily therapists that I've worked with just for general like therapy, but my I've worked with so the UFC has a sports psychologist now. I've worked with him. I love him. And then I also have Mindlock, which is he is based out of Canada, but we do like video chat therapy appointments. And working with the sports psychologist has really been a game changer for me as far as training and fighting goes. So I will say that that has really helped me. But regular, just everyday therapists or whatever, because most of them don't understand sports in general, and they don't understand combat sports or fighting. So like that's the majority of my life. So if I'm going to talk to you about my problems, you're probably not going to understand what I'm saying anyway. So sports psychologists have really helped me a lot.
yeah. And one of the problems I had is I was I enjoyed very much, you wouldn't think it now, but I used to enjoy working out very much. And then I got into a car accident, had 3 back surgeries, chronic pain. And that just, I take prednisone now just to get through the day. And I take a very low amount because it gives you that, it puffs you up. And so I went through depression with that. And so I've actually, when I talk to fighters, I've actually said to fighters, and I talked to one today. I said, listen, I appreciate you doing the show. I have no sponsors yet. So, if you ever want to talk, you know, that's my like payment plan. Like that's my payment for you coming on. So like I say that, and I've talked to a couple people, and I've said that to a few people. And I was talking to someone today, a fighter today. We were just chatting. He was asking my opinion on something, and I'm happy to do it. Like, because I mean, I appreciate you you didn't have to come here. and even though it took 4 times, but you did. And I'm an unknown entity right now. And so, and you took a chance. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to be doing a lot of press. Like I'm going to be doing a podcast with this Jill Nicolini, who's very well known in New York. And I'm doing these podcasts so that when I go on hers, I have something, and also to promote my business. And, you know, I'm a former homeless guy and all that stuff. So a lot of people, you know, talking to some reporters and things like that. But, you know, when I get a yes from somebody like you, when I say somebody like you, I mean a badass, like you've achieved things that other people haven't. You've made it. Listen, I don't know, you know, if you're into baseball or football or whatever, but you're in the major leagues of fighting. You made it to the show. I talked to Eric Anders, who played in the NFL, and Tyler King, who played in the NFL. And Tyler King was on The Ultimate Fighter season 19. He's also a former Bellator champion, but he played in the NFL. That didn't, that ended. So then he went to NFL Europe, then Arena. Eric also NFL, then Canada. And because they didn't want to give up that competition. And now they, you know, like Eric, and he told me, he goes, I'm in the NFL of the MMA world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you are too. You made it to the show. You made it to the show. And so whatever happens to you from this point on, like you have so many opportunities now, I think. And so, you know, I hope you take advantage of it. And if like you're only training 3 times a day. So, you know, that was sarcasm. And so, but, you know, so many people, you know, you are a positive role model because you could show, especially girls, like, you know, you could do whatever you want. You don't have to take shit from dudes. Like, you know,
That's what I like to show young girls, especially, that they can do whatever they want, because even when I was a little kid, it wasn't that long ago. I'm not that old. I'm only 28. But in
No,
the
I know.
90s, in the 90s, growing up, like at recess, so most of my friends were boys growing up. I was always a tomboy, right? And I remember at recess one time, I wanted to play football with the boys, and they didn't want to let me. And the teacher told me that I wasn't allowed to play football because I was a girl. And that that has sat with me for the rest. Like I still talk about it. I'm 28 years old. That happened in like probably 3rd grade or something like that. But like I didn't like being told that I couldn't do anything. I'm like, well, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And so that's why I really like to show young girls that they can do whatever they decide to. Don't listen to what society tells them they should or shouldn't do. Like that's crap.
It is crap. And you know, one of the things that I've learned, because I do different techniques, it's one of the things I practice is called CPT, cognitive processing therapy. So it's programmed, there's ways to help you build up your self-esteem, but then there's ways to build up your self-intimacy. And it's a difference, meaning self-intimacy is I'm alone, but I'm okay with being alone. So many people, and I gotta say, even at some point, like I wasn't, like I was with one person, she destroyed me. I dated someone I shouldn't have dated after that. I'm 46 years old, and I dated someone in their 20s. And to me, it was like dating someone, not to be funny, but it was like someone who was bipolar or Tourette's or something. Like it was all over the place. And yeah, she was very young. And then I dated someone else. And then after that, I said, F this shit. Like, and I just focused on me. And then, unfortunately, I lost my father from COVID, and that just changed everything on how I think about things. Like, you know, and then I started really getting more into the grief and trauma. There, you know, as long as you could reframe how you feel. So if you're someone who feels suicidal, believe it or not, you can, with some work, you could change that feeling and feel good again. You really can. It just takes work. So, and I appreciate your honesty about that. And it was very open. And this turned out to be one of my favorite interviews, almost as good as my non-interview with you, which was excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the non-interview, and then I'm going to post this interview. So
Okay.
this is going to be going on the podcast, and then also on my YouTube channel, which I haven't started. But thank you so much. And my last question to you is, because this is going to be my new last question.
Okay.
Because I was watching a documentary. I went down a rabbit hole last night, wasted 2.5 hours. That's not a big rabbit hole, but it was, when you have so much to do, it's a rabbit hole. My last question on Bruce Lee.
Okay.
So the question is, I'm going to end every show with, if Bruce Lee was alive, he would blank. And I could give you an example if you like.
Please give me an example.
Okay. If Bruce Lee was alive, he would be on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Well, that's a perfect one. Dang.
Yeah. But it could be Bruce Lee as the Bruce Lee we
He'd
know
be-
him. It could be a young Bruce Lee, or it could be what he would be now, which I think is in his 60s. So you
He
can
would
pick.
he would be a commentator for the UFC now, I think.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to do one more, and then you do one more. If Bruce Lee was alive, he'd be verified on Instagram.
Oh yeah. That's obvious. Let's see.
I laugh at the verified. I'll let you go, and then I'll tell you a funny story about verified, because I still don't get the whole process. Like you need verification to prove it's you or something. I don't know, but
If Bruce Lee were still alive, I think he would be acting in Hollywood somewhere and doing some sort of martial arts movie still.
as an older man, or
As an older man, like I think he would still be doing martial arts movies. I mean, Jackie Chan did, right?
Jackie
He's
Chan
old.
looks great. Jackie Chan's got to be in his 60s.
Exactly. So Bruce Lee would be the same way.
I agree with that. And I want to tell you a funny verified story. I was talking to a fighter, and she's dating another fighter, and she clearly loves her boyfriend fighter. And she says, he's one of the best in the world. He's not even verified. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, what does that mean? And then I was like, oh, you mean on social media? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So I looked up verified, and I put in for verification, and Twitter's not even doing it anymore. So I'm like, I think you're verified. And so,
Yeah. I don't even know how I got verified. They just did it. I'm trying to get verified on Instagram. They won't do it. So I guess I'm not cool enough yet, but maybe one day.
I guess it's about how active you are, but I get a kick out of it. Like it verifies who you are, that you're real. And I'm like this. I'm like, yeah, this is me. So I'm verified. Like, yeah. I mean, do you understand? You're 28. You're 20 years younger than me. Well, 18. So I'm still learning about the social media.
I just think of it as like it verifies you as like a public figure or celebrity or whatever. So that's why I think I'm just not cool enough to be verified on Instagram yet, but I'm gonna get there.
Have you tried?
Yes, I have. They turned me down.
How do they turn you down, by the way? How does that
They
happen?
told me that something about like I don't meet the criteria to be verified.
They send
So
you an
again-
actual email. Do they send you an email, or do they send you an
They send me
email
a
through?
notification. They tell me on a notification, like you don't meet the criteria or whatever. I'm just like, okay, well, one day I will.
Wow, that's so funny that we let people like make us feel like that. It's funny because I'm doing
I
it
don't
too.
care. I find it hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm getting excited about is when I've asked some cool people to do the show like yourself, and you guys say yes. Most say no. Well, most don't answer, but some say yes. So, and then I've been like Ken Shamrock's wife just emailed me today saying Ken's gonna do it. Don't worry, just give him some time. And I say, that's cool. And then, but I have like had text messages with some really cool, famous people, and it's like,
Mhm.
That's like when you send a message to a really famous person or someone, I forget fame because everybody's equal to me. Whether it's Ken Shamrock, Leah Letson, whoever it is, I'm excited that you're all here. But it's kind of cool when I send something and then it says seen. I'm like, they read my message. They read my message. They read it. Leah Letson read my message. So anyway, one last question, because I'm being a liar now. Who's your favorite fighter besides yourself? And then we're going to get you out of here.
Rose Namajunas.
Is she a friend of yours?
No, but she is my favorite fighter because I feel like she's a good role model. She's humble. She shaved her head because she's like, what do I need to, I'm not a model, like I'm a fighter. And that is freaking awesome because I feel like a lot of the female fighters feel the need to like sexualize themselves, and it's like, listen, we're here, we're athletes, we don't need to do that. And I think Rose did a great job of making a name for herself without doing that kind of stuff.
Well, the thing with Rose is, if you were to look up Rose, like type her in, I don't think she wasn't doing it, but people were doing it like to her. Like there was videos. She's prettier than the ring girls. She's this, like Joe Rogan is like, she's the prettiest girl I've ever seen. And so I think she like didn't want to be known as that.
Yeah.
So she shaved her head. And that's badass. Like that's completely badass. So
sorry, my cat's gonna join us.
what's your cat's name?
This is Angel. I have 2 cats. We have Angel and Zoe.
Okay. So do you live with your boyfriend or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I hope he's doing better after his procedure. Thank you so much. The next time you're about to fight, maybe I could have you back on before or after.
For sure.
Your call. And I'm going to send you the non-interview privately so you can see it. And if you're cool with it, I'll put it up. If you're like, but I think it's funny as hell. I think it's funny as hell. I was even like thanking you for your service to this country. I was like, thank you for your service to this country. And you were like, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. So it's very good. Nice to finally meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I hope your health gets better. And this was a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye. All right. I let them hang up now. And then you get to see my puffy face. So that was Leah Letson. She was very open about her thoughts of suicide. I had a little thought about that myself at one point due to a narcissistic creep. And never let anybody else determine your self-worth. Absolutely ridiculous to do that. And a lot of us allow that to happen for a multitude of reasons. Sometimes you don't want to be alone, or I'm 46 and you meet someone who maybe wants children and it's the wrong person, but you're like, well, I want to have children. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. If I've learned the hard way, and I'm very proud of myself because I feel just, from even doing this podcast, and that was like my 15th, or I say 15 to 20 because I wrote them all down. I think it's like close to 20 now. I'm learning so many things. And, these are people that I'm talking to that most of them I've talked to, their living is going to a cage and beating the shit out of each other. And how they practice for that is by also beating the shit out of each other. So while we're learning and studying and learning how to maybe learn Excel or read a book on a certain therapy technique, which is what I'm doing, or getting licensed, which would be what I'm working on. These people are learning like how to rip your foot off, and these guys, they could do more. Like they could really hurt you bad, but they got rules. So they could, rip your ears off. They could bite your neck off. Like they really could. But I call it beautiful brutality. And I hope they start an organization called Beautiful Brutality Fighting League of Europe, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. I'm going to put some links and descriptions. I sound like a YouTuber now. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm too old for a YouTuber. Maybe I'll go on TikTok. I'm only about 30 years too old for TikTok. If you're my age and you're on TikTok, the FBI is going to be looking into you. I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. All right. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye.